So let's set up this scenario. I've been in a car accident. And now I realize I'm injured. I could do that, and you may break it down. I could do that on scene because or I could do that when I get home that day, or I could do that when I get home in 2 weeks realize it. So however you've seen these cases, how would you break this down on what to do?
So I'll start with like the best advice, right? The best advice right after a car wreck, like literally that day or the next day, even if you're not sure, even if you're like, I don't know, I kind of feel okay. Yeah, I'm walking, I'm talking. It's probably a good idea, no matter what, to go to the emergency room. Most people don't think about that, but it's super important because what it does is it lays a predicate for how soon you were sort of, well, I'm not sure. Let me see if anything's really messed up. Now remember, the emergency room, their sole job is to make sure you're not going to die. So they're going to do x-rays, they're going to do a physical exam, and unless you're bleeding or have something broken, they're more than likely going to send you home. But when you tell them that you're there because of a car wreck, they'll start making small notes that won't mean anything to you. But they might be notes like, check the head. No obvious problem, but could be a concussion. Don't know. You won't know this until you actually have the medical record, and they won't hand it to you when you leave. They don't even make them for 10 or 12 or 20 days sometimes, right? But we'll get that record if you hire us, right?
I want to ask a question on that.
Yeah.
So what happens, and for everybody listening, the scenario is not my fault.
Yes.
Not my fault.
Right.
It's not my fault.
Through no fault of your own.
It's not my fault. I've been hit. Yeah. It's likely going to be the other person's, and I don't have health insurance. Mm-hmm. I'm scared to go to the emergency room because now it's going to be $1,000. So can you just address that?
Sure. So if that's the case, then I'm going to go back to what is, I don't want to call it a running joke because it's not a joke. Call Angel Reyes and the team at Reyes Brown Riley, because what we can do because of our relationships with hospitals, not just in Texas, but around the country, is they will actually take a letter from us that will stand in as if you had health insurance, and they will see you and charge you nothing, and you will at least get a quick emergency room. You're not going to die today, more than likely. That's their job, just to prevent you from being sort of on the verge of death. But they also check some other things that are going to be important later in your case that you don't necessarily know about. And some of that things are the things I talked about earlier, like, potential head trauma.
So let me just go back, though. Let me rewind, just so I understand this. If I don't have health insurance, I'm in an accident, it's likely not my fault. I can call you, and you will give me a letter that the hospital will accept, so that I do not have to output money. Is this right?
Just to be more clear about that, you're technically right, but to be more clear about that, we will refer you to a hospital that will accept a letter from us. Not every hospital will, but so many will, that we'll find one close to you that'll make it. We don't want to inconvenience any client, so we're going to find one as close as possible that will accept a letter from us, and that happens all over Texas and frankly all over the country.
That's what I was going to say. This is not just, although you are in Texas, but you handle firms all over the country, and you have those relationships.
We do. But it did take. It was an overnight thing. 31 years. I'm kidding.
31 years, and you've done 55,000 cases.
55,000 people
that have paid.
We've helped. We've helped 55,000 people receive a maximum recovery. And again, we consider a maximum recovery more than just money. We've helped them physically recover. We got them to the doctors they needed to go to, or sometimes doctors that they didn't even think they needed to go to. We uncovered issues by using experts. And all of a sudden they're like, oh boy, yeah, I really need to get this looked at, right? And so we help them with their physical recovery. Every client that comes through the door here, we also help them with the emotional and mental component. These are traumatic. Almost all car accidents and car wrecks are traumatic. And people sometimes process trauma very differently. Like everybody's got a different sort of emotional state. And some people can't even drive later. You know, I mean, that's a problem. Everybody's got to be able to drive.
Well, that's actually a real problem that
Yeah.
needs medical attention in itself.
And it takes some time sometimes for the people who are more sensitive to that kind of trauma. And we have experts that can help you. And so we get you the physical recovery, you're going to get better. We're going to get the right doctors to help you get to as close to where you were before this intrusion on your physical health happened through no fault of your own. We're going to get you as close as we can with the experts that we work with, and those are all medical experts. They're all medical.
But you
doctors.
do need to go to the emergency room. If you're injured, you've got to go to.
If you can, you should. That we have represented so many folks who 10 days later, we can get you to a different doctor. You may not need, but the question still was, right after an auto accident, what should you do?
Yeah, I'm injured.
If you can get to an emergency room, go. If you're worried because you don't have health insurance, call us. We'll get you to one. Okay? And if we can't get you to an emergency room, we're going to get you to the next best option. And it's not going to cost you anything. You got nothing to lose by hiring us and letting us help you find the doctors who work with us. Because if we don't win your case, they're not going to charge you. They're not going to come chase after you for these medical bills. And so if you've been in a crash that was not your fault, you owe it to yourself to make sure that you get that physical recovery, that you get the mental recovery, and then we're going to take care of you with the financial recovery at the end of the case.
So I have a question. We've talked about, this was me, but let's say my kids are in the car and I had a friend in the car. This is the same thing for them.
Everybody. If you've got passengers, every one of those passengers should do everything that you're doing. So you happen to be the driver, okay, but every single person in the car should do the same thing. Call us and we'll help you. Whether you got health insurance or not, we're going to find you the right medical experts, medical health care providers. We've got them all over Texas and all over the country, and they're going to get you in a position for you to know with some confidence whether you have an injury that is going to resolve with some therapy perhaps, or with some kind of medical intervention, or whether you've got an injury that might require surgery. And boy, if you don't know that and the insurance company can get you to sign a release for $500 or $1,000 right away, they'll do it. And once that happens, you will never have a chance to have the at-fault driver compensate you fairly, and you'll never get a maximum resolution. And you really need to hire lawyers to help with that.
The other thing that I was thinking, and we're here at Reyes and Associates, so we're in the law firm, is if I have someone else in the car who I either know well or may not know well, I actually want that attorney because they could have been hurt. And now it's sort of like, I hate to say this, but when people die, it's sort of the dynamics change and everybody wants to know who's going to get the inheritance.
Right.
So when you're in an accident, someone there may be a side of them you don't know. So if you get that attorney, then and you're going to take care of everyone, then that can alleviate some tension.
Absolutely. Sometimes people who are the backseat passengers you may or may not know well, maybe they were just your kids' friends. Their families are like, well, so-and-so got in a car wreck with my kid in the back seat, right? And so, look, the smartest thing to do, you don't have to, but we encourage you to hire all of the passengers in the car along with the driver that were in an accident or a car crash that was not their fault should hire the same law firm, in my opinion. The reason for that is that collectively your cases are stronger than individually. And if you go get separate law firms, what you end up having is, and I don't want to throw all my comrades and colleagues under the bus, but you end up with other lawyers sort of bitching and screaming at each other about, no, I'm supposed to get paid more. And it becomes an issue of the other law firm thinking that they deserve more money instead of focusing on the clients who deserve more money, right? And so in order to avoid that, it's easier and better for everyone in a car wreck that was, they were in a car that was not responsible for the car crash, to hire the same law firm and collectively go up against the at-fault driver's insurance company, because it's just more strength in numbers, basically.
So would you, if I'm in an accident, I have someone I sort of know, or you raised a huge point that I didn't even think of, is someone else's kids, that family gets an attorney. Will you call that person? Like, how do you, because it's a sketchy.
Yeah, it is. So look, if you know them well enough to have them in your backseat, you probably know them well enough to let them know, look, we hired Angel Reyes and the team at Reyes Brown Riley to help us with this. Our recommendation is for you to do the same thing. Now, they may or may not follow, your sort of recommendation, but it can't hurt to do that. By the way, today's day and age, you can do that via text. You can do it via email. You don't even have to get on the phone with them. You can just let them know, hey, this is what we did. You want them to call you. If they tell us they want us to call them, our team will swing into action and we'll contact them immediately. What we can't do, though, is we can't contact people that have been in car crashes that don't want to be contacted. So there's some bar rules.
So you actually need permission.
I need some intent. I need the intent of the potentially injured person to have some intent to contact us or want to talk to us. Now, they don't have to call us. They can just tell someone, yeah, have them call me. And once that happens, we'll swing into action. We'll call them. We'll get things going. You can stay out of the mess as much as you want. And it might be better for you to stay out of the mess, especially if you're not related. Sometimes even being related, it can be messy, right?
Oh, true.
Yeah, because you're like your brother or your mom or your sister's like, man, that was a terrible day.
Or they'll say, yeah, that wasn't your fault, but it was your fault because
you were driving.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in the you put me at risk. Even though it wasn't your fault. So look, let's get back to the base point. The base point is, if they're passengers, no matter whether they're related, unrelated, whatever, if all of you collectively hire the same law firm, it tends to work out better than if you don't. Now, if you don't, you don't. We've had plenty of cases where there's another law firm representing a passenger or even another family member. Sometimes like, I'm not going with Aunt Matilda's lawyer. I don't even like Aunt Matilda. She probably hired the wrong lawyer. Those things happen. Okay. And we'll work through it. It's not the end of the world, but the better option would be to hire the same lawyer, because collectively we can make a stronger case against that insurance company with all of you than with only one or two of you. So
is there anything else? I'm in a car accident. I know I'm injured. I just want to emphasize one thing that, and I've had this happen not in a car accident, but in another situation. You should not sign anything without getting an attorney, because you've mentioned this and we've talked about it on other episodes, but they will try to get you to sign a release, and in a moment of weakness, that moment of weakness could actually cost you your health long term.
Yeah, it could cost you more than your health. All right, so I'm going to get right to the point. The insurance company of the at-fault driver is not your friend. They will call you and actually sometimes pretend like they are. They will say to you, hey, don't hire a lawyer. We'll write you a check for $1,000. Don't even bother going and getting checked. Why pay health insurance providers? We're going to give you $1,000, sometimes $1,500. The number's going up, right? And some people think, I don't know, I could use $1,500 tomorrow. I mean, really? That sounds like a pretty good deal, right? And they'll run someone to your house and have you sign a full and final release, which means you can never sue the at-fault driver, and the at-fault driver will never pay you another dime other than the $1,000 or $1,500 that the insurance company is offering you, and sort of telling you, hey, otherwise, the lawyer's going to get some money or the doctors are going to get some money. Why don't you just take the whole $1,000 or the whole $1,500? And you haven't even been checked. You have no idea if you've got a real injury that's going to be a real injury is a real injury, whether it lasts for a day, a week, a month, 6 months. But I call those for now injuries. What you'll never know, sometimes not for 6 months, is whether you have a forever injury. And a forever injury for $1,000, boy, have you shot yourself in the foot. I mean, you don't get a second bite at that apple. Once you've taken that money, you've got to sign a release to get it. And insurance companies will literally run people out to your house with the check and the release and go, here's $1,000, sign here, and it's all over with. And if you do that, you'll more than likely live to regret it.
So the other thing, too, is I want to make a legal point. If for some reason they don't run someone else and you didn't sign it, but you cash the check legally, that's actually accepting it, correct?
That is accepting.
So I just want to make that point because I've had not accidents, but legal contracts where they've said, I didn't sign it. I was like, you deposited it.
If you take the money, it's the equivalent of signing the release. Now, in theory, you could probably bring a lawsuit. But,
I know. These are standard deviations from the norm.
At the end of the day, the bottom line is if you cash that check, it will be constructively.
Another lawyer has a very good
You've
case.
constructively released the at-fault driver, and there will be no chance of getting that at-fault driver's insurance company to ever pay another dime.
Did we miss anything on injured in a... Oh, I do have a question.
Yeah.
I did. So just for illustrative purposes, how much, because I want to make a point about this $1,500, which does sound like a lot if I could have it tomorrow.
Yeah,
and they will deliver it.
They'll actually have a check in their hand most of the time.
A cashier's check.
Yeah.
How much in general, let's just say that in 3 weeks I figure out that I've actually had whiplash and I have a sprained neck. How much can it cost in general, just to put a number on it so that we illustrate that?
So the medical cost alone, generally for, and I don't like to call it whiplash. I mean, I like to call it what it is. It's an injury to the soft tissues.
Yeah, I'm unprofessional.
Of your cervical, thoracic, and lumbar spine, which is the most important integrative piece of your body. Everything is connected. You can get radiating pain, you can get numbness. All of it comes from your cervical, thoracic, lumbar spine issues, right? Every car accident, no matter how minor, there are injuries to all those parts of your spine. Some people express them with way more pain than others, but that's because everybody's different. Everybody's pain threshold is different. And so, you get in a car wreck and there are going to be issues with that. And when you go get therapy, most people have heard of physical therapy. Many chiropractors offer physical therapy. That physical therapy is almost always done in combination with MRIs. And the reason you do that in combination with MRIs is that there is no way to know if you have a forever injury without having the best diagnostic pictures that we can get. And the doctors all know that, and most people in the audience know, that an MRI is how you know what's going on with the soft tissue parts of your body, right? It's the best diagnostic tool out there. And everyone in a car wreck, no matter how minor, deserves to know. It deserves to get that MRI done.
How much is an MRI?
So, about $4,000.
Okay, how much is it for therapy? In general, that you've seen,
let's say 6 to 12 weeks, about another $10,000.
So we are $14,000. I just want to go back to the point
with one MRI. But if you do cervical, thoracic, and lumbar, it can be $10,000 to $12,000. So you're at $20,000.
$20,000, and we just got a check for $1,500. You actually are literally going to go into debt to fix yourself if you even consider that.
Yep, that's exactly right. And so, what can you do by engaging a law firm? We're going to make sure that they don't screw you by giving you $1,000. We're going to also make sure that you don't screw yourself, because in a moment of weakness, and I hope no one takes this personally, you can kind of screw yourself, shoot yourself in the foot, right? People have done it. I've done it. You've probably done it. And you look back and you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't have done that, right? So this is the way to not do that. And frankly, Look, if you have and certainly in the state of Texas, if there are copays, if there are some lost wages, if there are other medical needs that you have, our law firm can actually pay those for you. And so you really got nothing to lose. I mean, you could lose. I mean, you could lose a lot, and I don't mean just money. You could lose your health, and that's worth more than money.
Of course it is. Well, we covered a lot there in this episode.